Good morning, everybody. As you can tell by my hair, it's early morning and watching the morning news. And I've been wanting to say this video for a while and this is about the Russia conflict. So this might be a little long, but it's a very long subject. I'll try to keep it under 5 minutes. We're in the wrong when it comes to Russia and this conflict that's going on right now, in my opinion. To recap a lot of history, let's just say that Russia's been on the right side of the two world wars that have determined our current history. And I think Russia, in terms of its cultural alignment, is much more aligned to the United States and the Western world than it is where it's landing right now, which is in China's lap. And I think that is a devastatingly bad development. I think for the history again, because I think history is the hugest part of this thing that nobody wants to talk about. We have to go back to the fall of the Soviet Union. We have to understand that Russia went down without a fight, and that's a very important thing. They literally, as the second largest world power, went down without a single shot fired, and peacefully disintegrated their empire, which is not a small thing to do. And they released all of the countries that were under their control, and during that time, they were given promises that our military alliance, NATO, would not encroach eastward towards its boundaries. And over the years, starting almost right away, the Western world walked away from that promise, and many countries started to join NATO. All of these countries, a lot of these countries, the Baltics, Poland, were bordering Russia. You had all of the Eastern European countries joining NATO, and Russia did nothing through this whole time. Nothing. They continued to do nothing all the way up until 2014, well, just before 2014, 12, when we started to mess with the one country that we shouldn't be messing with, which is Ukraine. And Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia, those three countries are intrinsically entwined in ways that we can't even possibly comprehend here, in that their cultural, economic, and ties with those countries, they are in large part half or more of their population has deep Russian roots from their people, and they are all three really entwined into Russia's core economy, which is a really key part of this, because why we're in this conflict is because of money and the economy, and the fact that the West probably fears a strong economic Russia. And when in 2012, when the Orange Revolution, or 2009, I can't quite remember what those years are, but the color revolutions got started, which, by the way, were backed by the same legal groups that turned our elections in 2020 into the fiasco that they were. A group led by Mark Elias, and you can look this up. He is the most prominent Democratic attorney group in the world, and he's the driving force behind the 300 lawsuits that were filed in 2020 to mess with our electoral system. They did the same thing in Ukraine, and they messed with the electoral system over there, and they backed the color revolutions, and then they turn around and oust a elected president backed by Russia, and they still did nothing. Okay? And then a few years later, the European Union decided that they wanted to strip Ukraine, bring it over into the Western aligned European Union economic system. And this was a red line for Putin. They warned them repeatedly not to do this. And just so you can put that into context, that would be like Russia coming over here and taking Canada out of NAFTA. Okay, that would be, or Mexico out of NAFTA. We wouldn't stand for it. We wouldn't stand for half the things that Russia's done, that we've done in Russia's backyard, that we've been doing in their backyard for decades now. And that led to this conflict. Okay, very plain and simple. That led to this conflict. So And we are continuing to push the Russians, and I don't think we should. The Russians have been on the right side of history for a long time. They dissolved their Soviet bloc. They were essentially economically like the United States in the 1930s. Okay, yeah, they got a lot of power centralized in oligarchs. That's what we had in the 1930s. They got a lot of crime organizations. Yeah, we had that in the 1930s too. They were trying to get through their early stages of capitalist democracy as they see it. We are in the wrong. And I don't know how we get out of this at this point. I don't know what the solution is. I think just briefly, I think the solution is we let Russia keep Crimea. Crimea is, you have to understand that's one of the reasons why Ukraine's so important. Crimea is the only warm water port that Russia has. It's economically and militarily vital, very vital to their existence, and they're not going to let it go. And so I think the solution is you let them have that. You make a settlement on some other areas that have already been taken over, and we vow that Ukraine stays a neutral country going forward. But we are quickly watching us walk towards what biblically is described as, the setup to Armageddon, with Iran and Russia and China and all these entities now becoming they were never meant to be allies, but we're driving them into being allies like idiots, and we should stop. So that's my thoughts on that.